Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georja Smith. Tonight, South Africa enters recession for the first time in 8 years, piling pressure on a government facing corruption allegations and credit downgrades. Also, Morocco is defending a recent crackdown on an anti-corruption protest movement in the northern region of Rif. The Interior Ministry claims that police had no choice but to come down hard on rallies in the city of Al Hoceima, called after the arrest of the movement's leader. And we turn to Mali, where doctors are scarce. Physicians, though, are turning to technology to treat patients remotely. One foundation is part financing the test program and claiming that results so far have been promising. But first, South Africa is in recession for the first time in 8 years. Unemployment's at almost 28%. Political turmoil's hit the country's credit rating hard, and the state of social services have led to widespread unrest in one of the continent's top economies. Nicholas Chamel tells us more.
More bad news for the already troubled Jacob Zuma and South Africa. The country is in a recession for the first time in 8 years. That means the economy contracted for 2 consecutive quarters. Analysts said there had been warning signs.
It's something that's already affecting people. So South Africans have already been experiencing this. I think we saw it in the jobs numbers that came out, that unemployment had risen to over 27%, the highest in over a decade. So this is just something that confirms in terms of people's experiences.
On the streets of Johannesburg, many South Africans were pessimistic.
I won't be able to get an income in any company because now I'll be struggling to get a job.
Personally, I'm very concerned. Well, my own opinion, I don't think it's the end of it.
It will be hard for us to afford the things for our needs, actually, not even our wants.
Political instability has made investors wary. In March, Zuma sacked his respected finance minister, Pravin Gordhan. That led to credit ratings being downgraded to junk status by agencies S&P and Fitch. Zuma has also been criticised even within the ruling ANC party after allegations of influence peddling by some of his wealthy friends, like the Gupta businessman.
Now, after a prolonged period of drought, South Africa's Western Cape province is bracing itself for Tuesday night's storm. Schools in the region closed ahead of gale-force winds, snowfalls, and a downpour that's expected to be bigger than any seen in years. Warnings have spread on social media under the hashtag of the mother of all storms, and disaster risk management teams and emergency services have been placed on full alert ahead of the arrival of the cold front. Well, 2 people have died in a storm in Tunis. The north of Tunisia was hit by strong winds, hail, heavy rains and flooding on Monday. The extreme weather is rare for this time of year. One of the victims died in the northwestern Kef region. Another was reportedly electrocuted in Manuba, a suburb of the capital. Many houses and roads around Tunis were also damaged in the storm. 3 people were killed in eastern Kenya after their vehicle hit a landmine near the Dadaab refugee camp in the eastern county of Garissa. Government officials say all the victims were Kenyan aid workers. The attack's been claimed by Somali extremist group Al-Shabaab. They've ramped up violence in the region ahead of Kenya's general elections in August. The insurgents have targeted Kenya in retaliation for Nairobi sending troops into Somalia to battle the militants. Now, Morocco's defended a recent crackdown on an anti-corruption protest movement in the northern region of Rif. The Interior Minister claims that police had no choice but to come down hard on rallies in the city of Al Hoceima, and that there was popular support for their response. Security forces have arrested dozens of people. Rif's long held a tense relationship with central authorities and was at the heart of the Arab Spring-inspired protests in the country in 2011.
Chanting, "We are all Zefzafi." Another night of protest in Morocco's northern city of Al Hoceima after more than a week of social unrest. Demonstrators here have been calling for the release of Nasser Zefzafi, the leader of their political movement Hirak. He's one of 40 activists to have been arrested in the past 10 days. The government said a number of those were detained for charges including undermining the security of the state and humiliating public officials. Rights groups are sounding the alarm. Amnesty International said that they fear this wave of arrests may be a deliberate attempt to punish protesters in the Rif region for months of peaceful dissent. Demonstrations started last October after a fisherman was crushed to death by a rubbish truck. As protests gathered in pace, the Hirak movement was formed to express frustration over social inequalities. Those rallying condemned the alleged government corruption and neglect of the region.
I'm part of a commission made up of a collective of human rights associations working on the ground and with some political figures. We came within the framework of this Hirak popular movement that has lasted months. It's time to find a solution.
Protests have been mostly limited to Rif, although a solidarity rally was held in Rabat last Sunday. Fearing a nationwide spread of unrest, the government's invited activists to the negotiating table in a bid to ease the tensions.
Now, the UN's giving Kinshasa a 2-day deadline to show that it is seriously investigating violence in the central Kasai provinces or submit to an international probe. In March, the UN's human rights body demanded a high-level investigation into abuses committed against civilians following the discovery of dozens of mass graves. Unrest has claimed more than 400 lives and forced more than 1.2 million people from their homes. Now, that's according to UN figures. Unconfirmed local statistics put the number of dead in Kasai as high as 3,000. This week, Washington also called for a UN-led probe into the murder of 2 experts from the organization who had been gathering evidence about 40 mass graves in the region.
Given the difficulties in accessing the areas where violations and abuses are occurring, I will be dispatching a team to the region next week to meet with people fleeing the attacks. Unless I receive appropriate responses from the government regarding a joint investigation by the 8th of June, I will insist on the creation of an international investigative mechanism for the Kasais.
Now to Mali, where doctors are scarce. Physicians, though, are turning to technology to treat patients remotely. One foundation's part financing the test program and claims that results so far have been promising, with around 175 cases already diagnosed from afar. The idea is to eventually roll the project out to other African countries. Take a look.
Turning to technology to treat patients remotely. In Mali, skin conditions are widespread and skin doctors are scarce. At this clinic, a pilot program allows healthcare workers to consult with a specialist, thanks to Bogu, an app designed by a Malian programmer.
If they have cases of skin disease and they need the opinion of a specialist, they take pictures, which they send us. They go to a platform which gives dermatologists access to the images.
Mali only has 1 dermatologist per million people, and nearly 30% of the population suffer from skin diseases of some variety, ranging from eczema to leprosy. The 18-month programme has helped treat hundreds of patients who can't afford to travel to the capital.
When I came to see the doctor, he took pictures, sent them and asked me to come back the next day to get my prescription. We went to buy the tablets and lotion, and I was healed. I didn't need to go anywhere. It was all done in Banamba.
It's not just patients benefiting from the technology. It also forms part of a training for doctors and nurses in the field.
We teach young people to learn dermatology from these images. In that way, if the image is good, we can make a diagnosis and give advice at a distance. We hope that this project will train health workers and improve the skin health of our population.
The idea is to expand the project from Mali to other African countries, reaching remote areas as long as they can get online.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa for now. Thanks very much for joining us. Do so again. Take care.